Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, distinguished guests, and folks of all stripes, put your hands together for the Space Cadet Sports Podcast. Houston, we have Paul Salazar Jr.
Hey y'all, welcome back to the Space Cadet Sports Podcast, your Houston sports podcast for diehard Houston sports fans. From a diehard Houston sports fan, I'm Paul Salazar Jr., your favorite diehard Houston Astros fan podcaster. I'm, of course, a podcaster, producer, comedy writer, and creative multi-hyphenate. Of course, I'm a Houston native and I have the receipts to prove it. I've eaten at each and every Papa Do's in Houston. I wish I had the money to do it all on the same day. I've spent the last decade or so as a comedy writer in LA, and now I'm podcasting. That's what happens once you hit 10 years out here in Los Angeles. You just start to accept LAX as an acceptable experience and are given a podcast. Welcome to said podcast. This is what my brother calls the Paul Broadpod Ball Blog. Hey, brother, check out spacecadetsports.substack.com for the full blog experience. You know, I started Space Cadet Sports as a passion project because most media is infuriating as a diehard long-term fan of Houston sports teams, whether you're an Astros fan, a Rockets fan, or a Texans fan. You know, that's not always, the reporting isn't always so kind, or it's very limited reporting on our teams. Here we aren't doom and gloom Houston fans, or worse, national media haters. We love our teams and want to root them on, but we also want to discuss the ins and outs of the team without too much homerism, without me carrying too much water. Keyword, try. We try to be reasonable, not too hot takey or reactionary here as well. And now that football season and basketball season is starting up, we have a lot on our plates here on the podcast, folks. We're recording this transmission here in sunny Los Angeles, where I'm joined as always by my co-host and co-producer, the Roz to my Frasier. Carla, the dog, is here with me, and as frequent listeners to the podcast know, she may get on mic from time to time. She has got the hot takes on this podcast. On this episode, it's Paul's Picks, where we pick the NFL games based off of the spread. We look at the over-unders. Well, we look at the spread, I guess we should say, but we are just, traditionally, this is just a pick-em show. We're just picking them straight up, if you will. We do look at the spreads. We do look at the over-unders. You've heard of Jimmy the Greek. Well, this is Paulie the Geek. Welcome here, folks. This is a moment where I also have to mention this is a comedy podcast. If you are here looking for, some serious gambling advice, maybe you mix me in with a couple of other different ones. Maybe I am the irreverent silly goose, podcast you listen to, maybe not your only source. I do love making my picks. I will tell you how I'm doing on the season, but we're here to laugh at them and talk picks more than me being a complete expert. We're also going to check in with the Rockets as their season lifts off. We're even going to stop by the Dynamo Corner and much, much more. But I love these Paul Picks episodes, getting to talk some football with y'all, getting to see how my pick'em's doing. We check in with my fantasy league. It is a bunch of goofy stuff, folks. So let's just go ahead and get into it. I'd like to welcome any new listeners that may be giving this podcast a shot for the first time. Welcome to the feed, folks. I appreciate you. Whoever sent you here, they are a blessed person. Thank you for giving this podcast a shot. If you are here for the first time and you happen to be Australian, I want to give you a huge g'day, mate. Definitely. We've been pushing for more Australian listeners. For those of you who have been repeat listeners to the podcast, you know that we are primarily a baseball podcast, and since baseball is that season's officially over, well, at least for me, we're getting into more sports, but you know that I am in the top 105 of Australian baseball podcasts, so we're just trying to sweeten those numbers up, get the cream to rise to the crop. So if you know any Australian baseball fans or any Australian Houston sports fans, let them know I'm out here. We're trying to bump those numbers up. I want to be in that top 100 of Australia baseball podcasts. It's a humble dream, folks. Let's go ahead and look ahead to our picks here. We're looking at Paul's picks. And I'm saying we're looking ahead, but forgive me because we're actually looking back. We're looking back to NFL Week 6, where I was 12-2 on the week. That is right. If you tuned in last week and you took my advice and you took my picks, you had a pretty darn good week. You went 12-2 on your week, which is pretty darn respectable. I will admit that the commissioner of our Pick'ems League did beat me. I believe he got 13 picks. But on top of it, if you did listen to the podcast last week and you did submit the picks that I said on the podcast, you beat me too because I foolishly missed my Thursday pick. Oh man, I was frustrated, folks. It happens to the best of us, or it happens to the worst of us, depending on how you want to look at it. But I missed submitting my pick for the Thursday game. I was on the podcast talking to you fine folks about what I'm picking. I sent the podcast out there into the podcast land, and I forgot to make my picks on the phone. Just before I recorded this podcast, I put my picks in, folks. So just remember, not submitting your picks can happen to anyone. I can't believe I missed that pick because I didn't submit it. I ended up going 11-3 for the week in my league because I didn't submit the pick correctly. So while I was 12-2 with my picks this week, full disclosure, let's go ahead and have a look back to see what I got wrong. Of course, the Thursday night game, San Francisco beat Seattle 36-24. I picked that correctly, but didn't get the pick in. So just fully admitting that. So frustrated, angry, furious with myself. Definitely was a opportunity to work on not feeling angry over silly things, not crying over spilt milk. I think it's important to sometimes release anger and frustration over sports because sports and sometimes could be a very healthy outlet for anger and feelings for men. But simultaneously, we don't need to be wilding out here in these streets over sports. We don't need to be in the driveway. Turning over cars and starting a riot because I didn't get my pick in. So I had a moment of anger and frustration, but I tried to let it go. We tried to process it a little more healthily there. But we missed that one. And going on to the two picks that I got wrong proper, I was wrong about Jacksonville. Jacksonville lost to Chicago pretty big, 16-35. I was nowhere close on that pick. Got that one wrong, of course. Or actually, yeah, I don't know. I should have got that one right. It just feeling funky, going with my gut, and my gut was completely wrong. Moving on to the other one I got wrong was Tampa Bay, who scored 51 points against New Orleans, who scored 51-27. That was a wild game. I definitely got that one wrong, thinking that New Orleans was a little bit better than they were, but also not respecting Tampa Bay's offense at all. Goodness gracious, 51 points. Folks, Baker Mayfield and Tampa Bay are balling out over there. I don't know how they are completely as a team as of yet, and it's not just because I wish I could watch every one of their games the same way I watch the Texans game. Frankly, this is a passion project. I do not have the time to pour over, every single team and to really know the league that well. I just catch the highlights, but the highlights have not given me any kind of I can't really ascertain what type of a team the Tampa Bay Buccaneers are, except for that they have a pretty electric offense. Let's go ahead and move ahead to Week 7. I got happy that we don't have to talk very long about my losses last week. folks, we're going to try to get to double-digit wins this week. Last week, I wanted to get to double-digit wins. Well, I got the most wins I've gotten, or I've tied for most wins I've gotten all season. I want to actually get to 12 wins proper this week. So we're gonna actually try. We're gonna do something novel here. Paulie the Geek is actually going to try to pick the winners instead of just trying to be cute and pick the ones he thinks will be interesting and zigging and zagging. We're going to try to pick the winners here. Also, we're going to let Carla pick the dog of the week. I have not done well with picking the dog of the week. We are 0 for 6 right now with dogs of the week, I believe, and Carla is not happy because I've officially branded it Carla's dog of the week, and I'm going out there and picking bad picks and embarrassing out her name in these streets. So she's going to pick the dog of the week out of my underdog picks. She's going to pick the one that she likes the most based off of treats. Well, she perked up when she heard that. All right, folks, I'm not going to say the T word again because we're going to have to save that for later. All right, Thursday night tonight, a little later, in just a short amount of time here, probably as you are listening to this podcast. Maybe you're watching the Thursday night game. The Thursday night game, though, however, is a bit of a stinker. We have Denver at New Orleans. New Orleans at home, favored by 2.5 points. And the over-under is 37, making it the lowest over-under of the week, just straight out the gate. Not going to be a high-scoring affair, but I don't think it's going to be much of a great game either. This one might be a little bit of a tough one. Maybe I'm wrong. I'll watch this one, and if I'm wrong, I'll eat my words. But I'm watching it because there's nothing else on. I'm not watching it because I'm completely enthused about this game. Apologies to the people, to the good people of Denver and New Orleans. I really don't like Bo Nix. I don't like what's happening with Denver's offense, and not personally. I think I don't like what's happening with the offense and with how they're setting up Bo Nix, I should say, because that's something that can sound a little more cruel than I mean it to sound. I'll walk that one back. I don't have to be that angry, that frustrated at Bo Nix. I think I'm more frustrated at the offense that they're putting him in. It doesn't look like they're putting him in positions to succeed. He looks flustered out there. Bo Nix, could be a lot more talented than he's looking right now, but the way he's looking, the system they have him in, just something is not clicking. I do not think that offense is going to do too well until they figure out some solutions for poor Bo Nix out there. But I do anticipate that New Orleans, who I believe is starting a new quarterback tonight before the injured I almost said David Carr, but Derek Carr. For an injured Derek Carr, I do think that New Orleans will find a way to win at home. It might be a little bit closer. It might be one of those 10-9 games that we've seen Denver play earlier in the season. But I do think New Orleans takes this one here. And this isn't to say that I think New Orleans has a really good offense, but with a new quarterback and with an amazing defense of Denver, it could be a weird, low-scoring affair, just all-around kind of ugly game. But I could completely be wrong here. I am. Like I said, I haven't been able to pour over every game in the league this season. When I was younger, I was kind of like that nerdy kid from the commercials where everyone's like, this guy, this little nerd knows everything about football. When I was little and I didn't have to have a job or have to stress all the time about my dog's health or my family, I watched a lot more football games. I'm trying to get back to that a little bit more now, Let's go ahead and move to the Sunday games here. We have New England versus Jacksonville in the London game. Will the NFL ever let the Jacksonville Jaguars back in the country? Have they been gone so long that conservatives now see them as illegal immigrants? I don't know. I am worried about the Jacksonville Jaguars actually being allowed back into this country. It could be, people could be very angry that they are allowed back in. Either way, they are looking to beat the Patriots this week, and they are actually favored. Jacksonville's favored technically at home, but in London by 5.5 points. Yikes. and the over-under is 42.5. I say yikes because both of these teams aren't good. And this is not favoring a team at home. This is favoring a team in London. They have been there a week, so this is closer to a home game for them than it would be for any other team. But also, I can't imagine just 1 week you're fully acclimated. I mean, it might still be weird. I don't know. I think, with their new quarterback, a lot of fans are excited about what the Patriots could do or could be one day, but I don't think it's going to be on Sunday. This sad ambassador of a football game could get interesting. Well, I guess I should say it could get close. And not necessarily could get interesting. I think this might be a bit of a closer game than the line says here, but I'm going to go with the Jacksonville Jaguars, and I feel like it's not going to be good. I hate the AFC South team so much that I never pick them when they win, and then when I do pick them to win, they bite me in the butt. We're going to go ahead and go with the Jacksonville Jaguars here because I do think that they are a slightly better team. After playing New England, I just don't know if their offense really has it. I think Trevor Lawrence and the Jacksonville Jaguars are playing for their coach's life. I'm joking that they might leave. They might leave not let the Jacksonville Jaguars come back into the country. But honestly, they might not let, I believe it's Doug Peterson, head coach of the Jacksonville Jaguars, back into the country. They might actually tell him, you can coach the other type of football. Start your own Ted Lasso out here. We don't need you anymore, Doug. So I think the offense will come out looking to win, looking to fight for their life, for their coach's livelihood, if nothing else. Jaguars for sure. Moving on to Seattle at Atlanta. Atlanta is favored at home by 3 points. The over-under is 51 here, and this kind of feels like the battle of the mids. These are both the best of the worst or the worst of the best teams this year, and the schedule makers are really making me pick between the two of them, really making me separate it out. So I'm calling it today, Atlanta is the worst of the best, and Seattle is the best of the worst. So due to that logic, Atlanta is slightly better than Seattle, as it is arguably just in the other tier, and Seattle is in the worst tier. So we're going to go with Atlanta here. I think Atlanta takes it at home. I do think Seattle is going to fight, is going to claw, but I think Atlanta takes it here. Then we have Tennessee at Buffalo. Buffalo is favored at home by 9.5 points. Oof. And 41 is the over-under here. I mean, there's no reason to overthink this. This is Buffalo all the way. Sorry, Tennessee Titan fans. Actually, I'm not sorry. The team is trash. Will Levis doesn't look good, and you're over here in these streets wearing Oilers colors. I hope your team is always terrible. A little trip to some smack talk corner there. I always jokingly make fun of all the AFC South teams. Of course, that's what you do to your rivals. Unfortunately for the Tennessee Titans, I don't see that there is any kind of path for them to win this game. If they win it, it will be shocking. We're going with Buffalo and moving on. Cincinnati at Cleveland. Cleveland is home dogs. They are the underdogs here. They're given 5.5 points. And the over-under is 41.5 here at home. I mean, do even people in Ohio want to watch this game? I can see this happening on local TV and them switching over to the other football game. The home dogs for 5.5 is not giving anyone any kind of good vibes about Cleveland, and this team has been lacking any kind of good vibes for... I'm checking my notes for decades. It looks like they have not had good vibes at all for decades. But however, lately, since they have this quarterback in Cleveland that we were very happy to see go in Houston, their team has been terrible vibes. I don't see Cleveland winning this game. I'm going with Cincinnati, but I'm also saying that this is a stay-away game because Cincinnati is involved and Cleveland is involved. It's like a double jinx. They're both reverse jinxing each other. I'm really not sure, who will win this game, but we are going to go with Cincy because we just don't believe in Cleveland. We're moving ahead to Houston at Green Bay. Houston is playing in Lambeau Field. Green Bay is favored by 2.5 points, and the over-under is 47.5. 2.5 is just slightly over the disrespectful home line of 1.5, of course. But we're going to go ahead and call this one just a little bit later. Let's move ahead to Miami at Indianapolis. Indianapolis is favored by 3 points. The over-under is 43.5. Miami is just miserable, and so is Indy. But Indy seems to resemble a football team a little bit more. We're going with Indianapolis here, and not going to overthink it. Miami has had a really tough season, and a team that was a really good feel-good team, kind of a youth movement team, a fun team, is now not really fun to think about. Moving on to Detroit at Minnesota. Minnesota is given the 1.5 line at home, favored by 1.5, I should say. The over-under is 50.5. Now here is a game. This is going to be a good one, but it's kind of a push with the home team favored by just 1.5 points here. They're Vegas, the CBS lines here, are saying push. I love Detroit. I've been really high on Detroit this season, like everybody else has. But Minnesota is a better coached team, and at home, as much as my heart or gut is whatever organ is telling me that I want to go with Detroit, but my brain is telling me I need to make up these wins. So I'm going to go with Minnesota. I think Minnesota takes this one here at home. Philadelphia at New York Giants. The New York Giants are home dogs. They're given 3 points here. 43 points is the over-under. This one is a stay away from me. I feel like this is, like a trap game for Philadelphia. I think this is a game that the Giants could win. The Giants sneaking a game like this against Philly in New York seems like a very a very funky thing, a very New York Giants thing that would happen. It also would, track with Philly's just awful or just kind of weird up and down season, a season that looks like they're trying to looks like Nick Sirianni isn't long for Philadelphia the way things have been going. This kind of just all the alarms are going off in my head that this is a trap game for Philly. I'm going to go ahead and go with Philly here, but I'm looking at this one, I'm circling this one, and this is one that I'm kind of being like, this is maybe one where I should have zigged, where I should have zigged when everyone else is zagging here. But I'm trying to get those wins, so we're going to go with Philly here, but I'm looking at it, and I'm wondering, are the Giants going to spoil this? I feel like they are. But we're still going to pick Philly, though. We're still picking Philly. I just am worried about those Giants spoiling this one for me. Next, we have the Las Vegas Raiders at the LA Rams. The Rams are favored by 6.5 points, and the over-under is 43.5. The Rams are given a lot of points here, making the spread a little interesting. But also remember, you're picking the Raiders on the road here. So I'm going to go with the Rams, even though I don't favor them quite as much as the spread does. But we are going with the Rams in this pick. Next game is going to be Carolina at Washington. Washington is favored at home by 8 points. The over-under is 51.5. This game is going to be very fun to watch. It's going to be the highest over-under of the week. Don't let your dog watch this one because there will be fireworks. I feel like the offense is going to be fun to watch. This team is just going to air it out. Washington is going to win for sure, though. I'm calling it. Then we have Kansas City at San Francisco. At home, San Francisco is favored by 1.5 points. The over-under is 47. The 49ers are favored ever so slightly with the disrespect of just a normal home line of 1.5 and nothing else. It will be close. This truly is going to be the game of the week. I kind of saying facetiously that Carolina at Washington is going to be the game of the week. That's going to be the offensive game of the week. But this one is the game that actually has some kind of stakes in the league. Kansas City at San Francisco. It's going to be close. It's probably going to be decided by a point or two. Here, Carla and I feel like the Chiefs, we feel like the game's going to end and we're going to feel like the Chiefs have lost. It's going to be down. There's going to be a lot of questions for Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes and Travis Kelce, and the press conference is going to seem tense for the Chiefs, but they're still going to win. Somehow they still will win the game, and it will just feel like they've lost it. So we're going to go with the 49ers to barely beat the San Francisco 49ers at home. The next game is the New York Jets at Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh is home dogs. They're given 2 points here, with the Jets slightly being favored, even though they're on the road, and the over-under is 38. I think this line has something to do with Mike Tomlin talking about Justin Fields being benched for Mr. Unlimited, Russell Wilson. So I think this line is telling you that nobody has any faith in Russell Wilson outside of Pittsburgh head coach Mike Tomlin. I don't know what the Steelers are doing with that quarterback change. I have no idea what is going on either one of these chaos teams. But somehow, like the human resources meme, human resources, the Jets are chaotic evil, but Pittsburgh is chaotic good. So, whatever the Jets might do, like everyone's like, human resources, this is scary. But the Pittsburgh Steelers do something weird, and you're like, I don't know. Maybe Tomlin's onto something. Or maybe that's just me. Maybe I'm giving head coach Mike Tomlin a lot of credit here. I'm kind of thinking that he's saying that Russell Wilson's his starting quarterback, but he's going to maybe have Fields and Russell Wilson, I'm trying to say, play quarterback. Maybe both of them play not at the same time, obviously. I'm not insane, but maybe sub in and sub out a little bit and let Russell Wilson kind of get his feet wet, but have Fields in there to manage the game. I feel like he's up to something. I feel like he's up to something. I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong. Mike Tomlin sometimes does this kind of stuff where it's just a little bit odd. I try to read into it, and it turns out it's just an odd thing that he's doing. But we will see. I am picking Pittsburgh here. I do not think... I like the Pittsburgh defense. I like Mike Tomlin. I think, like I said, they're both chaotic teams, but Pittsburgh tends to rise above the chaos and actually win football games, whereas the Jets are just chaotically flailing. Moving on to Monday night, we have 2 games on Monday night. Baltimore at Tampa Bay. Tampa Bay are the home dogs here. They are given 3.5 points. The over-under is 49.5, and I have to admit I have no feel for Tampa Bay, and I'm not going to start acting like I know now. I have been watching them. I have been watching their highlights, trying to figure this team out, like I was saying earlier, wishing I had a little more time to watch some tape. Go into the theater and watch some tape on Tampa Bay, like I'm angry Tom Brady, just sulking. I'm going to go with Baltimore because they are the better team, but I'm worried that Tampa Bay is going to haunt me. I kind of like that New York Giants game, but a little more fearful because I don't think Tampa Bay should beat Baltimore, but I'm worried that they're going to punish me here. Then we have the LA Chargers at Arizona. Arizona is the home dog, another Monday night home dog. Both of the home teams are the underdogs in these Monday night games. Arizona is given 2.5 points. The over-under is 43.5. And speaking of teams I have no feel for, both of these teams have been confounding for me. Even though all of the Chargers games are available to me, I haven't always had the best feel for them. I think the Chargers defense is good. The Chargers likes to grind out games, but I'm actually going to give the edge to the Arizona Cardinals offense. They're a very streaky team. I feel like if they're going to find some streaky plays against the Chargers defense, while the Chargers defense tries to kind of slow down the game and muck it up, I have a feeling that Kyler Murray, or I should say the Cardinals offense, is really going to find a way to score and just score enough to win this game. Moving ahead to Paul's pick of the week, we're looking at our 2 games here that are kind of if anybody is still playing eliminator, I don't know. I mean, the first 5 weeks of this season truly was favorite teams just losing to underdogs completely. I don't know if anybody is out there still playing eliminator. If you're still playing eliminator, kudos to you. Let me know if there's any leagues actually still going. But when we're looking at our favorites this week, I'm looking at Buffalo. I'm looking at Washington, but I really like that Washington pick. We're going to go with Washington over Carolina being Paul's pick of the week. I think that one is going to be the sure pick. Now, for Carla's dog of the week, we do have 3 underdogs this week to choose from. We're looking at Kansas City. I like Kansas City. I truly do, Carla. We also got Pittsburgh. We have the Steelers here and Arizona all as underdogs. I'm going to lay out some treats here for Carla, and she's going to pick one. One has a little K marking, a little engraving. There's no ink on it, don't worry. One has a P and one has an A, and I'm laying them out here. Carla's choosing the Steelers. The Steelers are Carla's dog of the week. Good girl, Carla. Hopefully she has better luck than I do. That is not the team I would have picked. So, we're hoping that her insight here helps you and helps me to make better picks. Let's go ahead and move on to some basketball talk. The Houston Rockets, or I should say your Houston Rockets, have a October 23rd opener against Charlotte coming up. They are 2-1 this preseason, including a wild overtime game win against the Oklahoma City Thunder, who are favorites this season to make a lot of noise, who have an amazing roster and are Western Conference favorites to kind of punish a lot of teams. The preseason is just some games that don't all, I guess I'm trying to say, they really don't show you how great the team is going to be in terms of win and loss. They're trying to get players some reps in. They're trying to get some players some looks to see who's going to make the squad. I'm not going to sit here and be like 2-1, book it. Your Houston Rockets are going to go to the playoffs. But, they have been looking good. You do like their competitiveness with head coach Ime Udoka, sorry about that. Those of you who know on the podcast, I struggle sometimes reading names, and I'm not ever trying to be disrespectful. I do better as the season goes on. I write things out phonetically. Even names that I know all the time, like Coach Ime, I talk about him all the time. But when I'm looking at it from my paper, when I'm reading it, sometimes I mispronounce names. I don't know what it is. Obviously, there's some kind of glitch in my brain. I'm sure there's people that relate to it, but I definitely am not trying to be disrespectful. This is a comedy podcast, and a lot of things I say are silly, but I'm never trying to be disrespectful of anybody's name. That's not a cool joke. I can make much better jokes than just mispronouncing things. There's better comedy in this world. But I do think the preseason is getting a lot of people's hopes high for this season. Maybe not Houston Texans high, but we're looking to make a playoff push minimally, which is a lot for a team that's been a basement dweller for the last couple seasons. This Tillman Fertitta era has been something that I have wanted to forget. It has not been fun. I don't like Tillman as an owner. You don't get to choose your owners. And that's frustrating. We're hoping that this team that they put together can make some noise, and hopefully he can start investing into this team going into the playoffs and seeing that he can make money off of that, potentially seeing those dollar signs wanting to improve this team that he owns instead of trying to own other teams. But we're not going to rip into Tillman. I'll tell him to shut up and listen a little later on in the season where we're talking about Rockets. But he's just a weird owner. I don't like him. Let's talk about rookie Reed Shepherd, who is looking to make a splash. I'm very excited about the tax man. In fact, I might shave down my beard to have just the tax man mustache. If you know what I'm talking about, comment. Let me know if you think I should shave down my beard to just a tax man mustache for the beginning of Rockets season. Usually, I gotta admit, I have the playoff beard during October, and I don't have to shave down till November for Movember for Men's Health. I shave off the beard and I grow out the mustache. But maybe I should do it early this season for Reed. Let me know what you think in the comments, folks. I'm really excited about Reed Shepherd and see how he's going to gel with the young core of the Houston Rockets. I'm also very excited about Steven Adams making his Rockets debut as a backup center to Alpi Shingun. I think Steven Adams is going to really solidify this Rockets team, have a veteran presence off the bench, and keep us, defensively active. No Boban this year, but hey, not everything can be perfect. Rockets coverage actually starts soon, and I'm very excited about that. And that means we'll soon have to do that Rockets season-ending pod, something that I haven't been able to do. Honestly, there's just been a lot of life things going on. I'm producing another podcast, but I can't wait to do that retrospective podcast on the Houston Astros. Maybe it's just subconsciously I was really scheduling it to be in late October or early November, as opposed to having to do a Houston Astros season retrospective in early October. I'm just not used to that. So maybe that's what it was. We're going to go ahead and move on from Astros jokes and Rockets news to talk about some Houston Dynamo. Playoff time is almost here in Houston, folks, but it will be on the other side of the 69 freeway in Edo at Shell Energy Stadium. There's one more game for your Houston Dynamo in the regular season. It will be the 19th against LAFC, and then the regular season is over, and the Dynamo are going to need you to make some noise in Edo. It should be fun. I just sometimes have to forget that Tim Howard is involved whatsoever with the Houston Dynamo, but I really do think that the Dynamo, have been investing into the team. They brought Ache over to be a midfielder last season. They got to the playoffs to end the playoff drought, and they're back in the playoffs. Go check out a Dynamo game, or at least maybe try to watch one on TV. Maybe I don't know where. A lot of times I have to watch sports, in a very Captain Jack Sparrow type way, I'll say. So if you are in Houston and you have the ability to watch the Dynamo, definitely give it a shot. I do not know exactly where their games air unless it's on Apple TV randomly and I get that notification on my phone. But we are excited about the Houston Dynamo going to the playoffs. I'm hoping they have a long playoff run so that we can keep visiting Dynamo Corner. I like visiting Dynamo Corner. Let's go ahead and move on to the WNBA. The WNBA finals are here, folks. Sabrina Ionescu hit a big three from the logo to put the New York Liberty up 2-1 in the WNBA finals over the Minnesota Lynx. Maybe not quite the matchup the league was looking for, but hey, a New York team in the finals is any commissioner's dream. And last but not least, it does look like, as we're checking into the wide world of sports here, the last thing to check in with baseball. Apparently, baseball still is going on. The New York Yankees are playing the Cleveland Guardians. That's weird. I really was hoping that another team would be there in the ALCS, but that's what it's saying here on this paper. The NLCS is the New York Mets and the Dodgers, and being here in LA recording this podcast, all I have to say is go Mets. It is a nightmare being in Dodger Town and having to put up with all this nonsense. If for nothing else, I don't want any more fireworks for me and my dog who experienced PTSD. Please stop winning so that my dog will calm down, LA Dodgers. It's the least you can do for me. Let's go ahead and check in with Paul's picks. I said that we would do it later. I would actually show the receipts. I say it's a comedy show. I say that if you are a gambler, maybe you shouldn't be completely listening to me. But also, if you haven't been doing that well in pick'ems this season, maybe you do listen to me. Overall, I am 57-35 on the year, which honestly, for something that I just randomly decided to do and broadcast to everybody out there, I was really worried I was going to embarrass myself with all my football picks. 57-35 is respectable. I'll take it, and I'm going to continue to try to improve so that not too many people can dunk on me. I feel like there's plenty of people out there that can laugh at my picks, but I don't want to get completely posterized out here. I am fourth in my league. Shout out to Michael Gamble and Abby Gamble, who the commissioner of the league, and his wife. They're great. I love them to death. They're dear friends, but they're both in the top of the league. They are really good at picking those teams, folks. So I'm fourth in the league, and who is fifth in the league? Well, of course, that's my little cutie, Sarah, my partner, is actually fifth in the league and really coming up and trying to steal my fourth place. Maybe she'll come on the pod and tell me how she's making these picks, because I have a feeling it isn't from listening to this podcast. We'll have to know. In my fantasy league check-in, let's go ahead and look at my sleeper app to see how I am doing this season in fantasy. That was my pick. I'm in the Thunder Bears league. I am now 4-2, which is good for fifth in the league. I am playing Abby Gamble, who, like I was saying earlier, her husband is the commissioner of the league. He's the commissioner of both the Pick'em League and for the Fantasy League. They are lovely people, and I can't wait to beat them in fantasy sports. This past week, I beat podcast guest extraordinaire Greg Hundemer in a nail biter on Monday night. It was projected 50% to 50%. We didn't know who was going to win. It was a close one, but I edged him out. And now I'm playing Abby Gamble, and I can't wait to show her what a feminist I am by playing my absolute best fantasy football against her. I swear, she really does have the best overall record in the league, and it's not to be messed with. She might be 3-3 this season and having a mid-year by her standards, but I'm worried she's going to make an example out of me in public and just beat me down. So I'm going to have to bring my A game. I picked up some pieces here. My quarterback, Dak Prescott, is on a bye week, and honestly, I'm looking for answers at quarterback going forward, because those Cowboys aren't looking good, and it looks like he's hit a wall this season on how productive he can be. So I'm looking for a new QB for sure. I picked up Kirk Cousins, so that was I feel like that's a great pickup by me. We'll see how that does going forward. But overall this season, I'm trying to get that extra win and stay in the top and keep my playoff dreams alive against a very tough opponent that's trying her hardest to win games. We'll see how Abby does. I said later that we would talk about the Texans and Green Bay game, and it is the last moment of the podcast, so we might as well get to the Texans. I'm going to go ahead and pick the Texans to make a splash at Lambeau Field. Jordan Love is going to be incredible. The Houston Texans defense, I think, will play great. They'll get some pressure and make some big plays, but Green Bay will counter with some passes over the top of our safeties. I worry. I think that they will get some big plays. They'll get some passing touchdowns for some long yards. However, I think Houston's offense will be on fire as well, rolling with a great rushing offense behind Joe Mixon, Damian Pierce, Darway Ungumbawale. We also have plenty of hope with our passing offense, with Stroud passing the ball around to everyone and matching Green Bay's points to make this a back-and-forth game. We might not have our complete over-the-top kind of threat with Nico Collins being out, but I think that this team will still be able to move the ball and will be able to compete with Green Bay and match them in a back and forth game. And I think it'll be a great game, and I'm going to say they win by a Fairbairn field goal. The Houston Texans win by 3 at Lambeau in a hard-fought game, and that just keeps going back and forth. I'm hoping that this is the result. I'm going for it. I'm hoping so hard and being so optimistic that I'm making it my pick this week, even though the favorite is Green Bay. I do think the Texans are starting to fire on all cylinders on offense. Having that rushing attack back is key. I worry about some safety play and some defense against the big play on the defensive side of the ball. But I think our offense will be able to hang with Green Bay. It isn't too deep into winter. I'm saying that the Texans win this game by 3. I'm calling it now. You can come back later and check the receipts next week. But right now, I'm going to go ahead and call it. And that's going to do it for this transmission, Space Cadets. Thank you so much for listening to the podcast. We are just a small podcast, and we appreciate every listen, every share. Please like, rate, review, subscribe, share, bop it, kick it, skip it, all of those buttons. If you could smash those buttons for me. Like I said, we're a small podcast and we're growing. So anything you do to help this podcast by subscribing, liking, rating, reviewing, or sharing really, really does help so much. If you'd be so kind, also find us on Substack. That's spacecadetsports.substack.com, where you can be a subscriber and get every podcast, every article, every meme dump for free, directly emailed to you in your email box when you put your email into that field there. Or if you're like me and you like the phone and tablet experience a little bit better, download the app. Go to the Substack app in your store, download that, search Space Cadet Sports, that orange astronaut pops up, and subscribe there. You could even click that you want notifications instead of emails. You don't get emails now, you just get that phone or iPad notification to tell you that we have a new podcast, a new article, or meme drop that you could check out. And once again, that is also 100% for free. If you want to be so kind and support the podcast, we of course are supported by viewers and listeners like you. We are a small podcast and this is a passion project. You can click on Spooky Season Special and you can support the podcast there for a very low nominal amount, and it really does help the podcast out. We appreciate all of our subscribers, whether it's just listening to us or they're financially supporting. It really does go a long way, and we appreciate each and every one of you. If you want to let me know your media, if you want to let me know your takes, you can reach out to me on social media. You can let me know if you think I am completely off about this Green Bay and Texans game prediction. Let me know on social media at Space Cadet Sports on Instagram and Threads, or you could reach out to me directly at Paul Salazar Jr., and I'm going to be on all social media platforms there. I'm active on all the cool ones. Let me know what you think. Or if you really just need to let me know about your Houston Dynamo take and you got to call in and let me know how you feel, you can call in and leave me a voicemail. If it isn't profanity ridden or completely laced with hate, I'll play it on the podcast, and that's going to be at speakpipe.com/Space Cadet Sports. Once again, that's speakpipe.com/Space Cadet Sports, where you can leave me a voicemail. Thank you so much for listening. We really do appreciate you here at the podcast. We do have the Last Astros podcast special coming up soon, before the end of October. Of course, I am producing it. I've been a little slow in getting it out there. And of course, new things have been happening. So I've just been adding more content to that Astros special podcast. So that might be a long one. I'm going to try to make that a video podcast. So stay tuned for that. We're also going to have more articles and more meme drops coming up at the Substack. So go check that out, folks. Remember to be the best that you can be. Keep your head up, kid. And as always, vamos Texans.